Tori and Hieronymus exchanged letters at least 2 or 3 times a week. Although their attempt at conversation was awkward at first, they were slowly beginning to open up to each other about their tastes and interests. Tori knew better than to ask magical questions through the post, but she did seem willing to open up to him about her relationship with her parents, or lack thereof. She described herself as a boarder paying rent and hinted that she missed his company. Although he had been busy with summer classes, he couldn't help but find that he missed her companionship as well. He didn't want to say it directly, but one day he did finally admit that he missed her, confessing that he would not be opposed to her returning earlier than planned. He wasn't sure how Tori would respond to that, and he almost regretted saying anything at all. At least, until he's got Tori's response 2 days later, which meant she must have sent the reply immediately. Dear Hieronymus, so you know how you said that I could ask my parents if I could come back sooner? Well, I did, just to see what they'd say. And apparently they're going to drop me off on Saturday. I didn't ask them to take me back so soon. They just suggested it. So, good news. You won't have to send me any more letters because I'll be there to spend time with you in person. If that's okay with you. I hope my return won't be too troublesome to you. I was hoping we could spend at least one afternoon a week together, but I know you're really busy with summer classes, and I don't want to bother you if you're really busy. You don't have to send a reply because I probably won't be here to get it. I hope you're doing well. I can't wait to see you again soon. Tori. He chuckles to himself, and he's almost surprised by how clearly he can picture Tori's bashful smile in his mind. He tried to search his feelings to see how he felt about her unexpected return, but the only emotion that surfaced was relief, mixed with a muted sense of happiness. Another letter from Tori, I see. He quickly lowers the letter as he turns to face Potsdam, who was standing in the doorway of the mailroom. Mind your own business. Oh, come now, Hieronymus, she scolds gently. You only get mail from your wife or your father, and I can't imagine anything your father might say that would evoke that expression. Hieronymus can't help but snore under his breath. His letters might get a warmer response if he respected my wishes and left me in peace. He only wants the best for you, Potsdam counters. You are married now, which means you can take up his seat. Just think of how beautiful Tori would look in a... No. His response is immediate. No, the severance will take place in January, as scheduled. I meant what I said. Tori is a bright girl, but she is a wild seed. She's still new to magical traditions and customs. She knows next to nothing about my noble status. I will not force her to commit to a role she does not want. Have you asked her? Potsdam asks. Instead of deciding what's best for Tori, why don't you ask her what she wants? He wanted to, but he couldn't. He couldn't ask Tori to make that decision. Tori would choose him, no matter what hardship that involved, and it wasn't fair to prey on her ignorance. Because Tori is a child, he insists, I will not let her be swept away with idealistic notions of romance. She is a student who should be focusing on her education and future career. Maintaining her commitment to me will only hold her back. Oh, Hieronymus, Potsdam sighs. She cups her cheek in one hand and shakes her head sadly. She seems at a loss for what to say. He waits for a few moments, but she finally just shrugs her shoulders and looks back up at him. So, how is Tori doing? Is she getting along well at home? Actually, she is returning to us on Saturday. You might wish to inform her roommates of such, if they are still here. Oh, I'm sure Tori has probably told them herself, she replies with a shrug. But see, Hieronymous, she misses you. I wouldn't be all that surprised if she asked me to stay at the school full time. Hieronymous was actually secretly elated by the thought of having someone to spend his holidays with, but he knew he couldn't let it show. Most wild seeds do, at some point or another. Now, if you'll excuse me. He folds up the letter and retreats to the safety of his room. Tori would be back in a few days. He had student papers to grade, notes to make, books to read, but suddenly he found himself sitting idly at his desk, impatient for her return. There you are! Tori hops off the bed as she walks up to him, grinning wildly. She reaches up to plant a chaste kiss on his lips as he removes his hat and cape, hanging them on a shelf beside the doorway. How was class? Fine, Hieronymous replies. The student drivel gets worse every year, and I have a plethora of papers to grade. That's fine, Tori says brightly. I'm working on my own essay about the transmutative properties of blue magic. You can just get your work done, and I'll be quiet, and I won't bother you. Without waiting for him to reply, Tori bounds back to the bed as she plops down on her stomach and returns to her essay. He watches her for a moment before he just sighs and heads over to his desk to begin grading papers. Time slips away from him, and it feels like hours have passed before he suddenly feels Tori rubbing the back of his neck with both hands. Tori, what are you doing? He asks. You're working so hard, and I can see how stressed you're getting. You can keep working. I'm just helping you relax a little bit. That's all. Hieronymous keeps working as Tori rubs his neck and his shoulders. It's pleasant at first, but it's quickly becoming a distraction, and he sets down the paper he was holding with a sigh. No more work for me tonight, he decides, and he can practically hear Tori's grin. I can order up some tea for you, if you'd like, she offers. Although it is a Friday night. Perhaps some wine? Tori, he warns, and she just laughs. Wine for you? Tea for me? She asks, and Hieronymous just smirks as he reaches up to stroke her arm with his thumb. He pulls her arm over his shoulder as he begins to kiss down the inside of her forearm, from her elbow to her wrist as he pulls her around to face him. Would you like me to start the water for your nightly shower? Tori asks, but he just shakes his head as he pulls her onto his lap. Tori seems to be fully aware of the effect she has on him as she allows him to brush her hair back out of her face and stroke her cheek with the tips of his fingertips. What did I do to deserve you, Mrs. Grabiner? He asks, and Tori just giggles. You said yes, she reminds him as she reaches forward to kiss him, and it's one that Hieronymous is all too happy to return. At first, the kiss starts out soft and gentle, but he can quickly feel himself becoming affected as he holds her tightly to him. Hieronymous. Tori pants his name in his ear, her voice soft and breathless, and as he runs his fingertips down her shoulders, he suddenly realizes that she isn't wearing any clothes. In fact, neither is he. Tori is suddenly on top of him now, pushing her hips down over his as his mind struggles to adapt to this new development. Tori. His mind wants to tell her to stop, but he can't form the words. He wanted her. He wanted Tori. This wasn't wrong. She was his wife. Their marriage had been unconventional, sure, but they were married now, and Tori wanted this. She wanted him, and he wanted her. He just had to admit that. He just had to say it. He just had to tell her that he wanted her. He just had to give in to this marriage, and then they could finally live happily ever after. And all he had to do was just say those 3 words. His mouth opens and closes as he tries to form the words, but they don't come. And suddenly, Hieronymous sits, bolt upright in bed, panting heavily. Once he has his breathing under control, his eyes scan the room for Tori. Was she in the bathroom? Had she already left for class? Or her treasury duties? What day was it? What time? But, as he quickly begins to take stock of himself, he realizes that it was just a dream. Tori was not his wife. Well, she was, but only in the contractual sense. The dream was just that, a dream, a reminder that his subconscious was starting to reject his lonely existence. He wanted a companion to read beside him, to take an interest in his daily affairs, and to care for him in an intimate way that no one else had ever done before. But Tori was a student. She had a responsibility to her education and to herself. She was a teenage girl, and he could not usurp her quest for identity by making her conform to the role of his wife, even if she wanted it. He could not risk becoming selfish now and giving this marriage a chance. Even if she wanted it. Even if he wanted it. And as much as he hated to admit it, he was beginning to think that he really sort of did. But he could not let this marriage become a real relationship. As much as he cared for her, he had to do right by her. He had to let her go. And when Tori arrived on Saturday, he was going to tell her just that.